Well, I see spending increasing in the European countries, definitely. And I look forward to see what the defense bill now will look like and the defense report that's coming out today in Sweden. But all countries are sort of increasing their spending, definitely. And just looking at forecasts, I mean, from January 23 to January 24, the projections in the next 10 years of defense spendings in Europe increased with 500 billion US. So long term, I think there will be growth and spending because we have an aggressive neighbor to our east, and we need to step up and create more resilience and deterrence. So there's more coming, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, you've managed to grow that order book as well quite significantly. So order bookings increasing 9% ultimately here. And it's just about continuing to see where that incremental increase then goes toward and what the shift then in NATO politics of kind of incremental increase then goes toward and what the shift then in NATO politics have kind of done for yourselves. Does that mean you've kind of had to raise things like research, development in particular areas to get different parts then of this NATO agreement and NATO changes into your portfolio?
Well, when it comes to NATO, I mean, it's quite new to us to be members of NATO, which is excellent, I think. I mean, we've always been a company with compatible systems and products for NATO countries, so that's not really new. But we are now accessing acquisitions that are being done in NATO, and we've seen that already with a few contracts from NSPA, but also, of course, being part of capability development within NATO, because they are also boosting regional defense capabilities. And now, I mean, in the Nordic region, we're waiting to see what kind of capability targets, meaning what do we do to make sure that we protect the Baltic Sea? How do we handle the Arctic perspective? How do we handle surveillance and air defense systems? That will come. That's not 100% clear yet, but NATO will mean a lot into how Swedish and Nordic countries will act when it comes to defense spending and also what capabilities we need. And that will indirectly affect us, of course, in terms of how we can contribute as a company.
What does it mean in terms of some of the investment levels required from your company? Because I can see as we look at the operational cash flow here, there was a drop in the quarter, a high level of investment was required. What is it going to take to gear up for the future as we talk about greater geopolitical risk?
That's right. I mean, we've said that we will be a bit front-loaded now this year, next year when it comes to investment. We are investing heavily to increase capacity when it comes to our support weapons and ammunitions, both in Sweden but also in India. Actually, we've started to build a facility in India, and we will soon decide which state in the US will be for us when it comes to building a facility there. But we are also employing lots of people. We net up last year 2,500, net up this first quarter more than 700 people, automation of production, higher volumes, lots of investments, but still delivering positive cash flow, absolutely, outlook-wise, even though it fluctuates over the quarters. Is this what's needed? Well, I think in Europe specifically, we need to understand this is a paradigm shift. We're taking steps incrementally, but I think there is more needed, and then we need more long-term commitments from governments in Europe to do even more to create resilience and deterrence and stockpiles and what have you to be able to handle our aggressive neighbor to the east.
Help us bridge the conversation we've been having around NATO targets. Obviously, the spotlight was very much on getting the 2% target for a lot of European countries after Donald Trump fired some very strong commentary at these countries. We're gearing up for an election later this year. Some of the countries getting to 2%, not all of them. Others are talking about getting into 2.5%, 3%. What does that spend by NATO member countries mean for your company?
It means a lot, of course, because it's much more volume and new capabilities. And I think you're right. I mean, the floor is now 2%. And let's see what's going to be discussed in the summit in July in Washington, D.C. I sort of guess it will be sort of a higher number. That will be the objective for many countries now. And that means a lot. I think we need much more air defense systems in our part of the world, looking at sort of dome capability to protect sort of infrastructure and cities and and things like that, which we haven't invested in for a long time. And so many other capabilities. So stepping up means a lot, and we need to follow and increase capacity and move ahead and create new capabilities. Embracing new technologies also, of course, to give absolutely new capabilities. Some of what we see in Ukraine happening. So there's so much more to come.